Hello beautiful souls and welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another tutorial and today we're going to talk all about how to color skies and in particular how you could go about coloring a sunset. So I will take you with me step by step how to go about coloring a nice beautiful rich sunset. In this tutorial, we will also talk a little more in depth about blending and how to go about making that nice little seamless transition between the colors. So many of you have requested this in the comments and you all make me so happy and I'm so excited to take you with me and talk a little more in depth and details about how you could go about coloring a sunset on your page. So if you're completely new to coloring or if you just want to pick up some new inspiration for your pages, I'm so excited that you're here and let's get started. So before we get into today's tutorial, I want to take a moment to really thank each and every one of you for watching and enjoying my last two tutorials. Your feedback and your response has me so overwhelmed with love and gratitude. I cannot believe that I get to share this huge passion of mine with so many beautiful like-minded souls, and it just makes me so happy. Thank you so much for your lovely comments and for your very kind and beautiful words. I'm over the moon happy that you enjoyed it so much and that some of the things that I talked about was of help, and my ultimate goal is to provide you with all the tools that you could possibly need to help bring the image that you have in your mind come to life on paper. So I want to share everything that I know and truly help you release all that creativity that we all have stored inside of us. So it makes me so happy to hear that you found it helpful and that you liked the way that I explain it. I can only say that I just truly enjoyed so much chatting with all of you, and it just makes me so happy that you enjoyed this new format and that you find it helpful. And the response from you guys to my two first tutorials are beyond anything that I could have possibly imagined and way above my expectations. So I'm super excited to continue this little series, and I'm very curious what you guys would like for me to talk about. So if there's anything that you would love to hear more about in depth or in details explained, please don't hesitate to write me down in the comments. So tonight we're gonna talk about something very exciting, something that I truly have been enjoying doing a lot lately. The last couple of weeks I've been indulging myself in quite a few sunsets, and tonight we will be talking a little bit more about how to color skies, and in particular how to color sunsets. This is truly a topic that I could talk to you about for hours, and there's so many ways that you can color a sunset, and it's truly just about whatever you feel like that day, whatever color you like using. I really love to take inspiration from nature, so since I started in the beginning, you might have noticed if you've been watching my earlier videos that I did always opt for like a black sky, and it really did fit with the spooky theme of Halloween and around autumn. So I was doing it super simple and just making the sky always black and decorating it with lots of stars and moons, and I really enjoyed it back then. But I decided at one point I want to dare to take it one step further and try to color a sunset. And since I made that step, and trust me, it's daunting. And it can feel very overwhelming and scary. But once you step over that line and really just pour yourself into it and dare to experiment with colors, there will be a lot of blending going on when you're making a sky, like a sunset or a sunrise. So once you dare, trust me, you will have so much fun with it. That is at least my experience. Since I dared to do that very first sunset, I don't even know which one was the first. It might have been the knitting one where I tried to do kind of a sunset through the window, and it just had me hooked. Ever since I did that first sunset, I catch myself, and I talked a little about this in the previous tutorials about shadows, that I catch myself looking at sunsets in a little different way than I did before. I've always really truly enjoyed these, especially these winter sunsets, because they are so rich with colors and nuances and have so many layers to them where you really can see the gradual effect. Since I started playing around with coloring sunsets, I catch myself looking at them very differently, or noticing what kind of colors, instead of taking in the entire picture being taken by the play of colors, I catch myself seeing, oh, there's blue there and there's purple there, and it goes from this orangey to this pink reddish and then over to purple. So it's really fun to play around with and taking a lot of inspiration from nature. And I've picked this page in particular because I think it could be a fun way to do a whole lot of sky but still have it parted into sections, which can make blending a little easier at first, because we will be doing a lot of blending tonight. But I think this could be a little helpful at first, because you have these sections so you can take a break, a breather, and have this kind of little safety net of these sections. So this section will be pretty big, because that's a trick about the sky. And if you watched my other video, the one where I had the sunset and they were catching the butterflies, you had this entire page of sunset, and it can be kind of stressful making sure that you get all the color transitions gradual when you have such a big page. So and you're not alone if you feel kind of stressed out or kind of intimidated by how to make a sunset or a sky or a bigger area in total. You're not alone. I feel exactly the same way, but with practice it does get easier. So before we get into starting coloring, as I mentioned, I really love to use nature as inspiration, and it can be helpful to either way imagine the latest sunset that you've seen, or you could use reference photos. So I like to sometimes to get ideas, go on Pinterest and just simply search for sunsets or sunrises, and there you can get pretty good inspiration, and it can help train your eye to in seeing what kind of colors is consistent in each sunset. So before we get into coloring, it can be helpful to take a little look at your swatch sheets and just see kind of which direction you want to go. As I said, there's 100 million ways to color a sunset, and there's 100 million different types of sunsets, where you can go for a very bright early sunset, you can go for a late kind of like darker sunset where the sun is almost already gone. What I want to try today is to do a sunset that is kind of like in the middle of both. So when I start coloring a page, I really love to take in what's happening and then draw my inspiration from that. So here we have Bear Ramen, and it really gives me that Japanese little mini shop booth feeling. So I wanna let that inspire today's color choices and make this like this full-on Japanese lo-fi sunset-ish kind of image. So I really want to play with a lot of purple hues, and something that goes really well together with purple is this contrast of yellow, warm yellow tones. So for first, these will be the colors that we will work with, starting our way from the yellow tones into the orange and peachy pink, and then go over to the violet and purple hues. So without further ado, let's get started. So we will start off with this first little section over here and just make our way and see how the colors blend together. And again, this is purely just how I enjoy doing this. There's, as I said, a million ways to color a sky, a million ways to color in general. This is truly just how I've kind of built my own way of doing it, and as you go along you will pick up different tips and tricks from all over the place and basically create your own set of styles. So you will find yourself picking up what you like here and there from different sources of inspiration and creating your own style out of it. So let's get into it. So we're starting off with this nice creamy golden color, and we're going to pull this one pretty high, because the trick about blending is to keep your ink wet so that you can blend the colors together really nicely. And I've come to realize that when you want to blend a sky, it really helps to pull each base layer pretty high so you can blend it nicely together. So we're going to continue with the moccasin and just see if it gives it that little darker yellowy orangey color. Then we're going to continue with the light orange and just see what that does. As I said, you never really truly know before you start how it's going to turn out, and sometimes you end up pretty lucky and it just works out fine, and sometimes it might not turn out exactly the way that you imagined it, and then you just have to roll with the punches basically. So we're going to continue with the light prawn, and I don't quite plan too much ahead how far I will take each color. I just go with the flow and basically see how I like it. And I want a lot of the sky to be purple, so I don't want to pull this warm color too far upwards. And you see, once the yellow leaves, you have this very nice pink shade to it. So you have that automatically, that gradual transition from yellow and orange over to pink. I think that turned out pretty cool. And then you can just pull this one all the way up to the line, and like I said in the beginning, these little string lights is going to be very helpful for and not making the color dry too fast. So then I want to see how, before the pink dries, how well the purple mixes with it. So we're going to start with the pastel violet because it has this very nice warmth to it, and I really hope that it's not going to be too harsh. Oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to pull this one a little further down. And what you can do when you do this, you can go over it again with the previous color. So in this case, the light prawn, and you can blend that transition even further. So depending on how well the colors react, and you can never truly know before you can go back in and give it that nice little mix. And I think that looks pretty cool. So the trick here is to now let the ink do its thing. If I would now to say, oh wow, oh well, this transition between the orange and the yellow is not quite smooth. If I would go in now and try to blend this, since this area has already started to dry, you will have these patches. So I've come to realize that once you leave it, you just leave it. You can in so many ways cover up any mistakes that you do along the way with clouds or stars. You maybe have seen me do that in some previous videos. So please do not despair. If there is any mishaps, there's always a way to correct it and make you not even notice it in the end. But I really like what we did here, so we can just could continue it, but I really truly like to, if we have like these two sides like here, I like to repeat what I just did before I forget. Before I basically forget in what kind of direction, in which order, like in what order you did do the color. So if there is a section that requires the same structure, I usually like to do that before I continue further up. So we're gonna go back with cream that we started off with. So we just try to mimic what we did on the other side and try to pull the base colors the same height. So as we noticed on the other side, that has an effect on how the colors will appear later on. So if you would pull this yellow color up the entire way, which you could do too in blending, you would have a less strong pink later on. Continue with moccasin, my favorite yellow hue. I always think of these shoes, the moccasin shoes. So we went pretty far down, if I'm not mistaken, so around here. Again, it's all just about having fun with it. There's obviously nobody that's gonna come around and judge your page. It's just having fun, daring to play around with it, and just basically like everything in life, daring to go outside your comfort zone, which can be very scary. But it's so rewarding once you do. So I think we're at the same height as with the other side, so I'm gonna continue with the light orange, basically the exact same thing we did on the other side, and basically going in before the ink dries completely. Now we continue with light prawn. And how far did we go? I think around here. Oh, I just love how it looks like when they blend so nicely together. I think it will further down. And a huge tip too, depending on how juicy your markers are, to stay far enough away from the lines. So since this is light prawn, I think, and here we go, I already forgot, I think we did pull this one all the way up. There you go. It already looks super cute. And like I always say, it's just purely about going after your belly feeling. So you just do what truly really feels good. If you feel like, oh, I want to make this a little more purple or more pink, it's all about just expressing that image that you have in your mind and just go with what feels good. Wow. I think this is coming to life pretty nicely. And as you see, and don't be scared, in the beginning every ink that you will do will be a tidbit darker than when it dries. So you see the difference on these sides. This is kind of like this darker muddy, and when it dries it will really brighten up. And I remember in the beginning, especially with very bright colors, it was very taken aback or scared because they come off very dark in the beginning. So you're like, ooh, what did I do? But they dry and turn out very nice and bright. So to continue on our first side, we have this nice little section again, so we can go about this without any stress and just be super relaxed about it. So since we did start this section off with still pink as the base layer, I would continue with the pink a little higher. So in this section we will have the pink, we will also have the pastel violet that we started here. This one will go pretty far up still, and then we will end off with mauve, and maybe even have the beginning of dark violet light, which is a funny name in itself. So we start out with the light prawn again, and just pull that pink a little higher. So then pastel violet. So we will pull this one to a little higher so we give it a chance to stand on its own before we blend it with the next color. Like that. So you see now this color and this color ending up being very different from each other, although it's layered exactly the same. So we will see how this turns out when it dries. It might be that we have to go over it one more time with purple. So then we continue blending with mauve, and let's see how nicely these two go together. So since the previous color is still wet, you will get this gradual, hopefully, gradual nice color. And I think we will pull this one all the way up. Or at least almost. And then go over with the last color for this section, the dark violet light. I just want to see. Oh, I love this color. I love myself a cool temperatured purple so much. Oh, this looks so good. Help me out. These colors just make me so happy. I don't know what it is. Oh, that looks really cool. So you see there's kind of like this section here that looks a little weird, so I'm going to go back over it with the previous color, the mauve, and just make it blend really nicely together. And since this section is pretty bright, I think I'm going to pull this one a little further down. And then go slightly over it with that previous pastel violet, but not pulling it too far down, because keep in mind this is all dry, so we have to be a little careful. But I think we did pretty well. Can pull this even further. And if you're really light with your strokes, you might end up not having that harsh transitional line and not go over too much where you already were. I think we did pretty well. I kind of like it. This looks cute. I think that's good. I think that's really cool. And now we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh, it's already starting to get this really nice and moody. So this leaves us with enough space to really pull this very rich, deep purple blue up here. So kind of like how we went along with the gradient. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So we are starting out with the light prawn again, and we're gonna pull this just a little higher. And then go over that with the pastel violet. I think we went a little higher with the light prawn. So, and then we continue with mauve. Over it with a little of the previous color to just mix it a little. And then I'm gonna end it off with the dark violet light. And again, you just go along with what feels good, and you will see where you need to go over it a few more times, or if the colors are reacting nicely to each other. I think that turned out pretty cool. And you see that we ended up having a very much the similar thing going on. So we will continue with the dark violet light and slowly transition into the bluebell, and we will see how that transition feels like, because we might bump in with a little lobelia. So we will just see how we go along. We will for sure start with a little more of the dark violet light. So now we're moving into a little advanced area. So this area here is one bigger picture. We could part it here because this is a pretty thin area, so you could easily blend this, and since this area will be darker anyways, I think that could be a cool thing to do, so we can still have these two sections and work our way upwards to not let the ink dry too far. So we start on the side. We're gonna go over it with a dark violet light. So we're just gonna continue pulling this one a little further upwards. So I'm thinking about pulling this one pretty far up, just simply because I love the tone of this purple so much, and it has that perfect cold and warm at the same time. So it's really about making sure the transition is smooth. Like that. I think that's pretty cool. Sometimes it's really hard to understand why ink behaves a certain way. So here you have these streak lines, although I went over it pretty quickly. So we're just gonna go in there very fast with the bluebell, because this is drying incredibly fast. So we just start kind of like this, and then we will just see how far down we want to pull this one. And I really love figuring out which colors kind of are in the same family, so as you go along you will get sort of a feeling yourself to which colors work well together and which colors are in family with each other. And I really love to play around with that, because then you will see kind of like which colors are the stronger or the darker variation of that very same color. So I find that the bluebell has this kind of same feel to it as the previous color. So I'm just gonna go over like this. I'm gonna make it stop here. We can blend that pretty nicely later. And I'm gonna go over again with the previous color, the dark violet light, and just make that transition a little more soft. But again, be careful because this area is already dry, so you don't get those streaky lines. So I think I'm gonna make here like a pretty straight seamless line. The lighter the stroke, the more invincible they will be when they dry. But I think that's pretty cool. We could pull it a little further down at the outside of the picture to get like this nice little curve. And don't stress too much about the stars being filled with color. We can correct that later with the highlights. So I think that's pretty cool. It looks kind of like this cloudy nice sky. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. We're gonna let this dry. I'm not so sure if we need to go over it with the Rubella. I think that's gonna be too strong. So we're just gonna continue and do the exact same thing on the other side. So we're starting out with a dark violet light. And then we're going to continue with the bluebell. I'll just go over it one more time with the previous color. I didn't want to pull that one too far down. I'll just blend these nicely together. Because this line is pretty harsh still, and just blend it nicely together. And the trick here is to not go over too much where you already were, so the line goes here, and if you go double on that, it's going to make the line even darker. So it's really about playing around with it. So I think that's gonna turn out pretty cool. Like that. So it looks still kind of dark, but I hope that as it dries, it's gonna brighten up a little bit. So as we see this side over here, I would like to see how it would react, because I really love this sunset already, but I would love to see how it would look like if I would add a little bit of that warm Lobiella to that dark sky. And then I usually just start and see how I like it. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. And if you keep the strokes pretty light, you don't end up adding too much ink. And I like that it makes it kind of like this even deeper purple, because the bluebell is very blue, so I think we will just pull this across the entire sky. I like that. I think that looks pretty damn cool. And you really have that very, very vibrant purple sky going up to a total night sky. So I think we will maybe end it off with a little touch of black with a cool gray 2-7. The cool part here is to use a cool tone of gray or black instead of like a neutral. So we'll just see this. Oh, that looks cool. Yes. And again, we just use this like stippling technique to not make the lines too harsh, because it's already mostly dry. So we just use that to not have too many streaks. Ooh, that looks so cool. And I like going a little further down around the edges because it gives it that nice rounded effect. Oh, guys, this is beyond my expectations. And then you just basically go over it until you like it. That's really cool. And just like that, you have a very rich, vibrant looking sunset. And the cool part with this one is that you can really just take it whatever direction you want. You can end it completely bright with this very light blue, or you can take it and make it this very moody, nice little sunset that we created here today. So what I love to do to top off a beautiful sunset or night sky is to add some highlights in stars. So what we have here is that we already have a lot of stars, and here we have the lights as well. So I think I'm first going in and color the stars that are already here with yellow. And I really like using moccasin and chrome orange for that. And then we're gonna add some more stars and sparkles with the white highlight afterwards. And to give them a little more depth and a little more rich and vibrant looking, I'm gonna go in and add some shadows to them. I think I'm gonna go ahead just to give it a little different kind of look and make the lampignons a slightly brighter color. I'm gonna use the buttercup yellow, and I think I'm gonna do the shadows with the moccasin just to give them like a slightly point of difference so that it all doesn't blend too much into each other. Giving them a little like this rustic feel. What we're gonna do now is add the little final touch, what really makes any sky in my eyes just really magical, and that is adding some white highlights. And we're gonna add now a sky full of stars. So there's really no way of going about this madness. It's basically just starting somewhere and going with what feels good. So like I said in the previous highlights tutorial, it's always smart to start on the left side because this will be wet and you do not want to plant your hand in your white paint and transfer it onto the entire page. So we're just gonna start up here, and I like making these little stars and sparkles. Like I said, there's really no right or wrong here. You just continue until you're happy with it. And I don't mind pulling the stars pretty far down because it really mixes very nice with the pink hues as well. So I think that looks pretty cute. And like I said in the highlights video is also a little about knowing when to stop. Because I really love adding these little stars and I can get pretty carried away. And it's all about trying not to align them too much, like making sure they don't quite hit the lines of where you were before. Oh, I think this looks very cute. So we're having a really nice starry sky, and so what I really like to do with the yellow stars is just add a few more highlights. So this is where you can really go in and correct where the darker color did bleed, so it's just not that obvious. And there's really no right or wrong here, just do what feels cute. I just over time somehow figured out a way that I really enjoy the stars looking. So I'm using here too like a combination of the technique that I talked about in the highlights video with adding those little dots, making it look really cute, sparkly, juicy. So I'm going to do the same thing to the light bulbs here. They will obviously be pretty shiny, so you can add those lines and dots as well. I think that concludes today's tutorial pretty nicely. I'm very happy with how this sunset turned out. You have this very rich warm colors from the sun still radiating through, and then you have that nice contrast with the very purpley starry sky. I'm really excited that we did this together, and I'm very happy how we made the colors blend very nicely together. It was the first kind of tutorial including some blending techniques. I'm obviously nothing of a pro when it comes to blending. I'm still just starting to figure this all out, so I found it pretty exciting to take you guys along with me creating a night sunset sky, because I've been enjoying painting them so much lately that I was really burning to take you guys with me and talk a little more further about how to color a sunset. Don't hesitate to write me in the comments if you would love to see different skies, if you would love to see more variations of different kind of color combinations when it comes to sunsets or skies in general. I'd be more than happy to do that. This was so much fun, and I think it turned out pretty cute. I'm super happy with how the colors transition into each other, and I'm very excited to continue this page in next week's tutorial. So next week we will finish this page and color this together, and I will talk a little bit more about how to choose certain things that you can think about or mind when choosing your colors, so that your entire page turns out pretty cohesive and balanced. So that's something we will talk about next week, and I cannot wait to finish this page. I have a very clear mind where we're gonna go with the colors for the rest of this little beer ramen place. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday. We're gonna finish this page together. So this is how the page turned out, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this little session was helpful, and please do not hesitate to let me know in the comments if there's anything you would like to know and hear more about. I would love to make a video about that. I would love to see how your page turned out, so if you post the finished picture on social media like Instagram, make sure to tag me, and I would love to repost your image. It makes me so much fun to connect with all of you, and I truly would love to see all your beautiful finished pictures. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I cannot wait to chat with you all again next week. I wish you a truly beautiful day, and see you next time.